Hello and welcome to the Media Play News Podcast. I'm your host, Charles Parkman.
And I'm co-host Charlie Sholey.
This week we're going to cover February's most anticipated movies and shows as compiled by Wit Media. The Last of Us was January's most anticipated show and has proven to be so popular it's been officially renewed for a second season.
Woo!
So we'll see what the next month has in store. Charlie interviewed Erik Davis from Fandango about several Oscar nominee movies that are available to rent or purchase from Vudu. So we'll be airing an edited version of the conversation and release the entire interview in a separate episode. And lastly, we're going to check in on Peacock and see how it's fared over the last year compared to juggernauts like Netflix. But first, Charlie, what have you been watching?
It's actually been a pretty light week for me. Saw the latest episode of The Last of Us. As of this recording, that's episode 3. The internet went crazy for it, and not because it was like super action filled, but it was yet again kind of like another vignette story that really gets into the backstory of one of the minor characters from the game. So it really just kind of like goes to show how the showrunners and writers are really expanding the world in a way that isn't really like expected. This week on The Last of Us, you're going to see Joel and Ellie shoot more fungus zombies. Wow, this is exciting. Not. So that was really good. Saw another couple episodes of Copenhagen Cowboy, but I had to take a break because it's a little much. But I should have that finished by next week and I can give more of my thoughts on it. But one thing that I did see was 2017's Matt Damon movie Downsizing. This was on Prime Video. If you saw Don't Look Up on Netflix and you liked its heavy-handed messaging, then I would also recommend checking out Downsizing because it falls into that vein as well. In the movie, where it gets its name, people are able to shrink themselves down to 4 or 5 inches tall in the name of reducing their resource consumption and carbon footprint. And it's used as a absolutely, definitely, totally not subtle vehicle to hit the viewer over the head with climate change bad. So overall, I'd say it's kind of a mid movie, but it did have a standout role for it's actress Hong Chow, who played a Vietnamese political prisoner who got shrunk against her will. And they really steered into the character's Vietnamese heritage, because I kind of feel like when mainstream movies cast someone to play a foreigner, they still have like an American affect, and their accent, it's like a little bit of the country they're from, but they sound obviously American. But this woman laid it on really thick in like a really, really good way too. So the fact that you don't see that sort of portrayal very often in movies like this, I think is worth celebrating. But that was it for me. How about yourself?
Another, relatively light week. I fully intended to start The Last of Us, which I'll obviously probably start after this recording while I make dinner. And I didn't, so I'll be able to report back on that next week, hopefully. But I did pick another DC animated movie at random to watch. I watched Justice League's New Frontier, based on the comic of the same name. It's on HBO Max. Like I said, I'm just kind of bouncing around on there. That one I know I also own somewhere and can't find. So let me just give this one a watch, and it holds up. It's good. Darwin Cook, the late Darwin Cooks, was a very distinct art style, and they translated it pretty effectively into the movie, and it's an enjoyable watch of like superheroes during Vietnam.
Cool.
It takes like the idea of what the DC universe looks like if like things had happened in like semi real time. So it's a fun watch. I recommend it. It's not even 90 minutes. I think it's like 75 minutes long. So another like quick watch if you just want something to have on the background, or to actually enjoy if you got some time. So.
Okay, let's get straight into it.
This week's inspiration, before we really roll in, I'm drinking just a nice 2 fingers of the Dewar's White Label blended Scotch. It's just what I have on hand.
I haven't left my office all day, so I'm still drinking the same water that I poured for myself like 5 hours ago.
You should drink more water, Charlie. All right. Let's get into the list of February shows and movies. Just like with last month, we'll include a link to the full list in the show notes and cover the highlights here. First up in the brand new shows category is ABC's Not Dead Yet, which follows a newly single woman attempting to restart her life who gets a job writing obituaries and sees ghosts.
And I just want to say, good job, ABC, for having the #1 most anticipated show. Because honestly, I mean, how many people follow network TV versus streaming? Maybe I'm showing my age, and if I was like 20 years older, I'd be paying attention to that stuff more. But in going over this list, it's not just the first entry that shows up on the network, but there's another ABC show, The Company You Keep. There's a Fox show, Animal Control. And then Sci-Fi, I'm going to be honest, I don't know if it's transitioned fully to streaming or if it's still on cable.
I'm genuinely surprised Sci-Fi's still around.
Yeah. The only reason I know about them is The Expanse launched there, but got picked up by Amazon because Sci-Fi foolishly canned it. But that's, other than that, I actually haven't heard of any of the shows that are here.
Yeah, I mean, as people who don't have cable, we're obviously not seeing ads for shows on cable. But I will say, just off that one line, Not Dead Yet, sounds like something I'd enjoy. That's like a very silly premise.
Yeah, I just hope they don't take it seriously, and it's just like, here are all the wacky ghosts that I run into, and I'm going to write some fun obituaries about them.
Yeah, there's definitely ways for that to be very joyless and like weird. But, fingers crossed. I'll watch it once it's on a streaming service.
Yeah, let's move into the most anticipated returning shows for February. #1, it's Carnival Row on Prime Video. I looked into this a little bit because I also haven't heard of this. It's a Orlando Bloom led show.
Yeah,
sounds like you know something about it.
My partner watched Carnival Row, and I have seen, so by extension, I have seen a handful of episodes of it, and I gotta say, it's not bad. I thought the premise was a little weird, like the whole deal being like, it's a fantasy series, but it's like also set in like the 30s or whatever, or it's like it's neo noir. It's also fantasy, so I can't actually. It's probably earlier than the 30s, but yeah, it had its first season, and then there was just kind of like nothing. Because the first season was in 2019, so it was interesting. It was interesting seeing that like it is getting a second season, and it just took 3.5, 4 years to get out there.
Gee, what happened in the interim, huh?
But yeah, it seems cool just from what I've seen passively. There's some I think it like does some interesting stuff with its premise. I mean, it's only 8 episodes, so if it's something that seems interesting to you, definitely worth checking out. Because it's a pretty quick watch. But I think the costume design on that show is like really interesting, and like the special effects are solid. So
that's good.
That's the only one I know though.
The next one, You on Netflix. I've actually seen all 3 seasons of it along with my partner. So imagine if you took like a really sappy Lifetime movie of like people in a perfect relationship, and then that's kind of like one element of the show where you see how happy these 2 people are together. And then the twist is the guy in the relationship is a stalker who's been obsessively following the woman for months and months leading up to him actually asking her out. So he has this very serial killery, stalkery obsession with her, to the point where anyone who kind of like takes her attention away from possibly noticing him, he'll end up either trying to like socially ostracize or blackmail, or in a few instances kill them. And this is all just in the first season as well. And the ending of the season is literally so insane that I can't believe that this was shown on like network TV, because I don't believe it was on Netflix initially. But I can't say anything more other than this show is insane, and each season tops the previous one. So
yeah, it was on Lifetime.
Yeah, that's it. Lifetime movie. Okay, see, I did know that. So yeah, this comes out February 9th, and I am probably going to be dragged into binging the entire thing in like one sitting.
Yeah, that's a Greg Berlanti joint. He's a creator and producer, and if you might recognize the name Greg Berlanti because he's been involved in every like show. He like worked on Dawson's Creek, and he produced Riverdale and like the whole DC Arrowverse. He's done like movies and other TV. Dude's all over the place. Yeah, what else we got? We got Outer Banks, also on Netflix. Next in Fashion, also on Netflix. So Netflix is actually, keeping stuff going.
Wow. Amazing.
And then Harlem on Prime Video, which I put on my list, but I so seldom open the Prime Video app that I don't see it. But I've heard that it's fun. And it has people I like in it. Like I really like Megan Good, and Whoopi Goldberg's there sometimes. So it's on my list of shows to watch that I just haven't got to. But I'm glad that people like it enough that it's getting another season.
Yeah, let's move into the most anticipated movies. It may surprise you, but Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is number one, and we'll see if it knocks down Avatar 2, which, if I'm remembering right off the top of my head, it's just crossed its 7th or its 8th week as movie number one in the US, which is a new record too. And also it's crossed $2 billion gross, number 4 highest grossing movie of all time, which puts James Cameron as the director of number 1 Titanic, number 2 Avatar, and number 4 Avatar 2 for highest grossing movies. The man knows how to call his shots. And then a couple other notable mentions of movies coming out this month. They're definitely on the weirder side.
Yeah, it's a weird list.
Yeah, there's Cocaine Bear at number 4.
Which does look fun.
Yeah, based on the true story of a grizzly bear that ate about $15 million worth of cocaine and then went on a rampage for 5 minutes before dying, I think, of a heart attack. And then the other, even weirder than that, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, which I'm pretty sure is made now because Winnie the Pooh has entered public domain and anyone can make anything about it.
Yeah, I think Peter Pan. So Winnie the Pooh entered public domain last year. I think Peter Pan entered this year. I don't know, like a bunch of stuff enter the public domain, or will enter the public domain this year, which is crazy. But yeah, I remember the Blood and Honey stuff coming out last summer. Just like, hey, there's some, now that it's in the public domain, someone's making a gritty horror film about Winnie the Pooh.
Oh yeah, there's a 0% chance that it's going to be good, but it's Winnie the Pooh in horror. Come on. You have to see it.
It's legally distinct from the Disney version of the characters.
Yeah, and then I'd say the other thing on this list at number 7 is Magic Mike's Last Dance. I don't even remember when the last one came out.
A while ago. Like, it came out pretty quickly after the first one. Yeah, XXL came out in 2015.
Wow. And yet, Channing Tatum looks exactly the same as he did in the last one.
Yeah, it's kind of incredible. That whole cast just keeping it tight.
Yeah, so
right,
we'll include the full list of everything in the show notes.
All right, next up, we're going to cut to Charlie's interview with Erik Davis, and I will see you on the other side.
We've got Erik Davis from Fandango, where he's an editor, joining us this episode to talk a bit about some of the big movies nominated for the Oscars this year, and which ones are available for digital purchase or rental on Vudu and other digital services. Erik, before we dive into those movies, do you want to take a second to introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Erik Davis. I'm a managing editor over at Fandango and Vudu, and I help manage all of our content and all of our social media. And then I also do a lot of interviews myself on TV and on the radio and on podcasts. And very excited about the Oscars and excited to rewatch or watch some of these films for the first time. Make sure I'm all ready for Oscar night.
Cool. Well, let's get right into it. First up on the list is After Sun. This was nominated for Best Actor, Paul Mescal. I haven't heard of this, so what can you tell me about After Sun?
Yeah, so this is actually a really well done emotional film about a girl who kind of takes a bit of a melancholy holiday with her father. And she's recalling this holiday that she took 20 years prior. And it's Paul Mescal is an actor who he's also going to star in the Gladiator sequel that's coming out. And so he's definitely a star on the rise. And this is a nice opportunity, I think, alongside another actor we'll be talking about, Austin Butler. That category is a really great one this year because everyone is a first-time nominee in that category. And so Paul Mescal for After Sun, the film itself is really wonderful. And I think that I don't know if he'll win, but I would highly recommend catching up on it. If you haven't, just make sure you have your tissues ready.
Cool. Moving on to the next one. There's Babylon, which has been nominated for production design, costume design, and original score.
Yeah, this is the new film from Damien Chazelle. Bit divisive, I think, in some ways, because I kind of look at this if Damien's film La La Land, which just racked up all kinds of Oscar nominations, if that is like the Hollywood dream, the Hollywood fantasy, Babylon represents the Hollywood nightmare. And there's a lot of kind of nightmare fuel in this film. Also about sort of aspirants in the world of Hollywood. And it's kind of the old Hollywood before old Hollywood. It takes place at a very interesting time as Hollywood is sort of transitioning out of the silent era into talkies. We don't see a lot of films about that. This one is a bit haphazard. It's a bit all over the place narratively. I think that's why we don't see it in that Best Picture. We don't see some of its stars nominated in the performance category. But there are some brilliant sequences in it, and it is really fantastic to watch. And so I would highly recommend catching up on it, even if it isn't one of those films that's nominated for the big stuff, so to speak.
Yeah, well, speaking of stuff getting nominated for the big stuff, this next one, Banshees of Inisherin, I hope I'm saying that right. This has like 8 to 10 nominations here, and actually is the same director and leading 2 actors that were in Bruges altogether. So I haven't seen Banshees, but I have seen In Bruges. It was a pretty good dark comedy, and I'm hearing that this one's kind of similar.
So I would start with the Banshees of Inisherin, and it's really essentially a story about friends who are breaking up. Where one friend just doesn't like the other friend anymore. And that, and Colin Farrell plays the guy who is not liked anymore. And he's wrestling with why don't you like me? What is it about me that you don't like? And it's really well done. It's really well written. There is a great cameo from a donkey named Jenny that's in it that has been a bit of a social media star. And it's, I think, just simple, setting and simple story told very well and very entertaining. And that's why we see all of its all of its main performers nominated as well, as is its score, as is its screenplay. So this is one of the most nominated films, and definitely one that you should watch sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. Moving on to the other end of the typical audience goer spectrum, we have the Batman nominated for visual effects, sound, makeup, and hairstyling.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Matt Reeves. I was a big fan of his Planet of the Apes movies, and I think he just adds a sort of layer of nuance and a layer of just visual spectacle, grimy, gritty visual spectacle that you don't see in some of these other comic book movies. And so I really love the Batman. Visual effects, sound, and makeup and hairstyling. I'm somebody who thinks you could also throw cinematography in there. I think Colin Farrell could have also been nominated for Best Supporting Actor for playing the Penguin. Like, I think this is a film that could have easily got a couple of other nominations just off the sheer production value that Reeves introduces in his world. And I could foresee his next couple of Batman movies maybe even registering in a way that, like, say, The Dark Knight did when Christopher Nolan was making his trilogy. So as a big fan of Batman and as a fan of comic book movies in general, I am most excited about Matt Reeves' Batman movies in terms of kind of getting back to the excitement that we had when Christopher Nolan was making the Batman trilogy, and that was also being recognized. And so great to see it on there. Could have been on there for a couple of more categories, but it's nice to see it represented.
But moving on to the next one we have on the list, Elvis. This has been nominated for several awards, including Best Picture, Best Actor, Austin Butler, and Cinematography. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, this could have easily wound up being just a simple by the numbers biopic. That kind of is fun to watch, and you're tapping your foot to the music, but it doesn't really kind of stick with you. I think what Baz Luhrmann adds to this film is just he makes every inch of it entertaining. And so that's what I really loved about Elvis, is that just watching it was just an overwhelming experience, and every frame he makes interesting with his filmmaking. I think Baz Luhrmann could have been nominated, maybe should have been nominated for Best Director for Elvis, because just of how he elevates the material. Austin Butler, he's actually my pick to win it. I think he's going to win Best Actor over Brendan Fraser, Colin Farrell, and Paul Mescal. I think Austin Butler is really great in the film, and it's just one of those movies that it is entertaining from start to finish. It's long, so it's a nice one to watch at home if you haven't watched it yet. And get to know Austin Butler, because like Paul Mescal, he's another guy that's on the up and up, and we'll see Butler again in the Dune sequel, which comes out later this year. And so his star is definitely on the rise. And I do hope, as a fan of this film, that it does pick up a couple of Oscars.
Yeah. So moving on, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, which based on this list seems to have been nominated for every award there is in the Oscars. I saw this, one of the few from this list, and I was blown away by it. So it's great to see that a movie with like such originality and unconventional relative to a lot of other stuff that comes out these days is getting recognized.
Yeah, 11 nominations. It leads all nominees with 11. And I agree with you. I think that we're living in a day and age where, the box office is often dominated by blockbusters, sequels, prequels, remakes. And a lot of people kind of, they'll criticize the industry and criticize Hollywood and say there's no original ideas anymore. You're not making anything. And so to see a film like this that is just bursting with originality, to lead all nominees, I think is a good sign of, like, we're not in the worst place. Like, we could be in worse places when it comes to movies. And yeah, this one misses Best Actor. So it's not like Banshees. It doesn't have all of those, but it has multiple performers nominated: supporting actress, Best Supporting Actor. Ke Huy Quan is probably my favorite story of the year, in terms of a guy that, peaked as a little kid in some big movies like The Goonies and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Hollywood forgot about him. but he persevered. He stayed with it. He didn't leave the industry and become a lawyer or something like that. And here he is all these years later. He finds this role. It's the role of his career. Probably going to win an Oscar for it. And it's going to change his life forever. And so I just think that like it's those stories that make us interested in the Oscars. It's those kind of Cinderella stories like that. And I think this film is full of them. Right now, I think it's probably the film to beat for Best Picture. And I think Key is going to win. I think Michelle Yeoh is going to win Best Actress. And I even think those two Daniels could even win Best Director, which shocks me considering the stuff that they made before this film. I never in a million years thought I would be saying that these guys are going to win Best Director, but I give them credit. They delivered a gem with this film.
So next up, we've got The Fabelmans. I believe this was the Steven Spielberg semi-biopic, right?
This is, yeah. So this is based on Spielberg's upbringing and how the divorce of his parents really kind of inspired his career and shaped him as a filmmaker. And this film, takes place when he's a kid, when he's coming of age. So it is like it does at times feel like this classic Steven Spielberg coming of age story, but it's also like his life too. And so I think the beauty of this film is that when you step back from it, you also kind of are able to look at his other films through a different lens. And through a new lens, and watching The Fabelmans, you can see, you think of films like E.T. differently, and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, you think about differently. And so I think it's for Spielberg fans, longtime Spielberg fans, I think this film is amazing and beautiful, and it's nominated in all the categories that it should be nominated in. And it could, will it best Everything Everywhere for Best Picture? There's a chance it might.
So moving into the first nominee on this list that is up for Best Animated Feature, there's Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. And if you had to assign an emoji to a movie, I think it would just be the two like super wide open eyes, because this is a weird one.
Yeah, this is a weird one. It's based it was like inspired by like a YouTube shorts that were being done about this character. It's stop motion. And yeah, it's about like a shell that's just trying to find its way in the world. Jenny Slate is a big component of this. She helped write the screenplay. She also voices Marcel. And it's a lovely film that, has rich, deep emotions in it. It's well done. And it's different. I think if you like your kind of animated films with a bit of a tearjerker in there too, then I think Marcel is definitely one to check out.
Cool. So the next one I have for Best Costume Design is Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. And this is the first I've ever heard of this movie. Eric, educate me.
Yes, Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris came out in like July, I want to say. So it was one of those films that came out. Not a lot of people realized that it came out because it came out in the heat of the summer movie season. It's about a widowed cleaning lady. It takes place 1950s London. She falls in love with this dress. It's a Dior dress. Decides that she must have one of her own, and so she sets out on a mission to get the dress. It's just a lovely film. Nice performances. Leslie Manville, also very good in it. Isabelle Huppert is also very good in it. I think there was a time when we thought maybe Leslie Manville could find her way into the performance category, but that didn't happen. But the film is lovely, and the costume design is really, really wonderful, especially when you get into like 50s London. A lot of colors, a lot of really cool costumes.
Great. So the next animated feature nominee we have is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish.
I should mention too that since the nominations came out, we just released on Vudu like our top movies of the week by revenue, and it's interesting that Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is number 2 on that list. Everything Everywhere All at Once is number 6 at that list. So if you're looking for like the Oscar bump, so to speak, that they speak of, Those two, at least we can say, immediately got a bit of a bump. And Puss in Boots, yeah, I give credit to DreamWorks Animation. I think they've done a really good job of, sort of delivering these films that maybe they're unsuspecting hits. And Puss in Boots, between the comedy and the animation, which is gorgeous, I think it just does a really good job.
So the next one we have is Tar. We'll see if I pronounce that one correctly after messing up Banshees. What about this one, Eric?
You did get Tar right. And this one is just, Cate Blanchett, I think one of the most competitive races this year is that Best Actress category, more so in that it's like Cate Blanchett versus Michelle Yeoh. And I've actually joked that we could maybe even see a tie, which we have seen at the Oscars before. We have seen, I think there's been about 6 ties. But if there's any category where we see a tie, it would be here between Cate Blanchett and Michelle Yeoh. Cate Blanchett plays a fictional, iconic, like legendary composer and conductor who begins to, fall from grace after abuse allegations are leveled upon her. This is the Cate Blanchett show. You really can't take your eyes off her this entire film. She is so captivating and so good at what she does. I feel like every role that she takes on is going to be nominated for an Oscar. She's just that good of an actress. And it's a really special time for us to be living in this age with her, because I think she's going to go down as one of the greatest ever. And this performance is one of the many reasons why.
Yeah, I agree completely. So next we've got To Leslie nominated for Best Actress. That's for Andrea Riseborough. So what about this one? Because I haven't heard of this one either.
Yeah, this was the surprise. This was a huge surprise. It was based on a grassroots campaign that Andrea Riseborough and her management team and the director's wife emailing celebrities, private screenings. The Academy is actually looking at it to make sure that it was a kosher nomination and that there weren't any rules broken, which itself has sparked its own controversy. But I mean, what is the Oscars without some kind of controversy, right? So, but she's very good in the film. She plays a recovering alcoholic who's trying to get back on her feet after winning the lottery and blowing all the money, trying to reunite with her estranged son and just make a life for herself. And Andrea Riseborough, excellent in the film. I mean, look, she deserves to be where she is. It is not an undeserving nomination. I think it's more of a question of how the nomination came about. But yeah, it's out there. I would recommend watching it.
Okay, and then moving on to a movie that, based on its box office draw, everybody seems to have watched, Top Gun Maverick.
Love Top Gun Maverick. This is my jam. This is my favorite movie of the year. I think it just not only brought people back to the movies, but it also proved that you can be a giant, massive success and not be a comic book movie, and that you could also be a giant, massive success and be nominated for Best Picture. And so I think that, similar in the way that it's really nice to see a great original film and Everything Everywhere All at Once nominated, it's also great to see a film like Top Gun Maverick that everybody went to see 4 times nominated for Best Picture. The Academy has been criticized in recent years of just not recognizing that commercial fare, not giving those films a chance to also compete. Feels like there used to be an era where that was the case, but not in the last several years. And so I love Maverick, and I hope it wins Best Picture, but it's great to see it in there and to get multiple nominations.
Yeah. So second to last movie we've got here, Triangle of Sadness. This has been nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Original Screenplay.
Yeah, this is a bit of a dark horse and also a bit of a surprising nominee this year. It's well done. It's essentially a film about a bunch of uber rich people who get on a cruise ship, and the cruise ship runs afoul, and once they're stranded on land, then the roles reverse, and now the people who work on the ship become a lot more powerful than maybe they were previously, and it's sort of what they call a quote unquote eat the rich kind of movie, which ironically is nominated by a bunch of very wealthy Academy members. And it also does include a 30-minute sequence involving vomiting on this cruise ship. So it's a bit of a crazy movie. That's why I'm surprised to see it nominated. Do I think that other stuff could have been there instead of this one? Yes. That being said, it is well done. It is very darkly amusing, and it is worth a watch.
Yeah, and then last we've got Turning Red, the last animated feature that's on the nominated list of Oscars.
This is about a 13-year-old girl who turns into a giant red panda whenever she gets too excited. It's kind of like there's a bit of a Teen Wolf vibe there, but it's told with such personality, with such a specific POV, takes place in Toronto, and, very kind of Gen X-y as well. And really, really wonderful and colorful and well done. And that animation category this year, I think, is so strong. Each one of the films nominated is different from the one next to it. All worth watching, all take risks with their animation style. And Turning Red is another one of those.
Yeah, so that was the list of Oscar nominees that are available to check out on Vudu, either for digital download or rent. Thanks for swinging by, Erik. What's the best place that people can find you online?
Yeah, I'm always running my mouth on Twitter at Erik with a K Davis. So you can always follow me on Twitter. But if not there, then just check out what we have going on Fandango and on Vudu.
Yeah, we'll include links to those in the show notes. Thanks again, Erik.
Thank you for having me.
And we're back. And for this week's last story, we're turning to one of the smaller streaming services, Peacock, to check in on how they're doing. By the numbers, they ended the year with 20 million subscribers, which is double what they had at the end of 2021. But that came at a cost, as on net, they've burned $2.5 billion. In the coming year, it expects to lose even more at $3 billion by the end of 2023.
But don't worry, Charles, because the president of Comcast, who owns Peacock, says it should level off there. So, they'll burn a steady $3 billion every year until they get absorbed by someone else.
I mean, that's kind of crazy. So I did use Peacock when it first launched. I was like, it's NBC. They're going to have a bunch of stuff that's going to be exclusive to that platform. As soon as all those streaming deals run out. And I was right for a while. There's, all their late night shows, a bunch of just, 40 years of network television. It's all exclusive to Peacock. But it just doesn't seem like they've been able to really find what their niche is. I mean, they got the Housewives franchise, if you're familiar with that, the Real Housewives franchise. They've got all that.
Oh yeah, a big fan.
They do have so I have it open right now, and I'm scrolling through, and they've got a pretty decent selection of movies that are currently, at the moment at least, exclusive to Peacock. You can only find them streaming here. And it doesn't seem like any of their original content, other than the only original Peacock show that I've seen people talk about is their dramatic Fresh Prince reboot.
Wow.
Which
I remember seeing the marketing push for it, but when it actually started airing, I heard absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it got real, it was just quiet immediately. And then another show that I listen to that occasionally talks about TV and movies was talking about the second season, and turns out people are real into it. But it's not a hit, despite the impact that you would expect for a reboot of one of the biggest shows from the 90s.
Yeah, something that's going to motivate people to actually sign up for Peacock in addition to what they already have. Because I mean, how many people do you think are signing up for Peacock as their streaming service of choice, or the first one they're signing up for?
I can't imagine it's many. Most people are going to it when they find out they can't watch The Office on Hulu anymore, stuff like that.
Yeah, I was doing some snooping into the type of stuff they had, and this might tell you a little bit about the state of their content. I came across a list from 2020 of the like must-watch Peacock shows. So number 1 was Brave New World, which has since been canceled. There was Cleopatra in Space, an animated show, also canceled. And The Capture, which didn't have any information about it past season 2, but it's probably canceled. So you compare that to like our talk about Netflix in a previous episode where they've got like 10 times the subscribers, 230 to 250 million worldwide. So not only are they serving more people, but they have a wider opportunity to sort of like cross-pollinate genres and nationalities like to each other. Like they're releasing 34 South Korean things just this year. And then another stat that I came across is the streaming video market just in general. It's expected to increase 1 billion subscribers worth from 900 million to 1.9 billion by 2028. So in the next 5 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So like
a full on quarter of the current population.
Yeah. The size of Peacock's subscribership, 20 million. If you sort of associate that to the amount of money that they're losing, if they got 10 million this past year and they spent 2.5 billion, they'll probably get, maybe another 10 million or so because they're going to be spending 3 billion next year. That still only gets them to 30 million. So like the rate of growth for them, or in terms of like the raw number of subscribers they'll be getting, like if they increase 50%, they're only going to get the same number of people as Netflix increasing like 10%.
Yeah.
The one other thing that I was kind of thinking about it too is that Peacock feels like a very generic streaming platform too. Like when I think Peacock, I don't think of a certain type of show or movie. So if you think of like other smaller streamers, like Shudder was the first one that came to mind. I don't know how many subscribers they have, but they are, the center for horror movies on a streaming platform. So they have like a very specific niche they can carve out. And Peacock is just kind of like there. Like there's Netflix with an obscene amount of original content, like obscene international content. There's Hulu, which is like, bargain bin Netflix. There's HBO Max, where it's like everything is actually pretty good and not canceled for the most part. And then there's Peacock. I don't really have anything to say about them.
Yeah, like it exists.
That's a good tagline. Peacock, we exist.
Maybe they'll find their niche. Like I said, like there's like so much that they have. It's just that none of it. There's no like I said, like they haven't found their niche. So whatever it is they're going to be, they just haven't quite figured it out yet. Or if they have, they haven't sold it really well.
Yeah, my money is on the Office extended universe. Because, the office building from The Office, there's like 4 floors. There could be a whole show about Vance refrigeration, another show about the security guard at the front desk. Actually, there was a possible Office spinoff called The Farm, which was just going to be about Dwight and a couple of his relatives running their beet farm. I'm glad that didn't take off because like the 1 or 2 episodes where they kind of sort of hinted at it just looked so bad. Partly to blame is the fact that it was like the last or second to last season of Office when the quality was just like not the same, but that would have been a really sour note to see The Office off with.
Well, I guess it worked out, but yeah, we'll see how long Peacock keeps going. I mean, NBC is like one of the big 4, so like it's crazy that they can't figure it out on the streaming side. But I don't know if if the president of Comcast seems confident, and like if clearly is cool with losing $3 billion until they figure it out. I'm sure that they will. Or they won't, and Disney will just own it also. That's going to wrap us up for this week. You can find links to these articles in the show notes and at MediaPlayNews.com, and you can subscribe to the site's mailing list using the subscription link in the notes. You can email us directly at MediaPlayNewsPodcast@gmail.com to have your comment featured on the show, or find us on Twitter at PodcastMPN. If you like the show, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. We really appreciate it. I'm Charles Parkman.
I'm Charlie Sholey.
And we will see you next week.